So, how is everyone? I hope you're all well on this fabulous, fabulous Thursday. I find Thursdays a little bit like middle child. It's not the midweek hump, it's not Friday, it's not Monday, it's just a day, the day before Friday. Anyway, look, before we get straight into the meat and potatoes, so this is kind of a delay to the meat and potatoes, I just want to pull your attention to something else that was brought to my attention yesterday, and that is with regards to the two Staffordshire Bull Terriers that were killed by the Metropolitan Police in Tower Hamlets, London, and that is Marshall and Millions. Now, Marshall and Millions belonged to a homeless gentleman. Now, this guy had been banned from having animals, but that's not actually a strange thing in the UK. If people don't have any fixed abode, they're homeless, it's quite common for them to be banned from having animals because they bring into question whether they can be appropriately looked after. But anyway, that's by and by, because what people are saying is, look, these dogs were clearly very, very well cared for. But what happened was, we're going to call her Karen for obvious reasons. Karen gets tangled up in the dog leads as she's walking by. And Karen goes to the police. Police come out. And while the police come out, they then get their weapons out and they start to intimidate the owner and obviously the dogs. And subsequently, the dogs are then executed by the police. Now, there's a lot of people who has witnessed this, so you can imagine Tower Hamlets, London, is busy, people see what's going on, and there has been a huge, huge uproar. There is a petition set in place, and the link to that petition will be in the description of this video. And it is to request that there is a change in the way in which these situations are handled. Many, many people, everybody who was in that vicinity and saw what happened, have basically said, look, this was not how it should have happened. This didn't need to happen. This is someone who had got themselves in a muddle. The dogs had nothing to do with it. The police have turned up, again, intimidating, and the dogs have reacted to that intimidation, but they were on leads. They were being held by the owner. They're Staffordshire Bull Terriers. They're not, you know, massive grey, I don't know, Rhodesian Ridgebacks. And they were executed, and they're saying that that was unfair, you know, and is it right? Is it right? Personally, you know, we hear a lot of these situations where dogs have attacked people, and I've always said the same thing. Bad dog comes from bad owners. And, you know, these dogs, I cannot, from anything that I've read, see anything other than that this was a situation where just some Karen had made a complaint and it escalated to this, and it wasn't right. So do me a favour, head over to that, read into it if you like. It's Marshall and Millions, Tower Hamlets, London. That will give you the full story, the background, and I'd appreciate if anybody who is willing to sign. Look, dogs' lives are as important as humans, and to be fair, in a lot of cases, they're more important than humans. But that's by the by. Anyway, straight into the meat and potatoes as we finally get the court documentation for the arraignment following the bombshell that Bryan Kohberger has been indicted via a secret grand jury. Now, look, was it secret? Look, at the end of the day, right from the very beginning, when Bryan Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial, he knew, his defence would have known that this could have happened at any one time. Now, it's not common in Idaho. When you look at the balance, they seem to prefer a preliminary hearing. And I still will advocate for the fact that a preliminary hearing is the most fair way to go about things, because it gives everybody the opportunity to review everything and to cross-examine what is being put forward and then go forward in the right manner with respect of what they found, you know, and that's real due process. And what this situation seems to be is that, and look, I could be wrong, but I look at it like this. I would feel in this case that a prosecution thinks, look, we could go to a preliminary hearing, and based on what we've got, there is a potential that we could lose this. Some of these things, the majority of these points could be argued, and it's on a bit of a knife edge as to whether we would then get to proceed. And it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court. We hear this often, and if they feel that they've got the right person, but they could technically lose on a technicality if something isn't right, or the way that they obtained something wasn't completely as it should have been, that could have potentially spurred them on to go down the route of a grand jury. Another thing that it does is it allows more control over what evidence and what details goes out to the public. And we have seen new documentation come out that is redacting the details of those who came forward in terms of being witnesses. Now, this is what I don't get, this is what I don't understand, and this is what I'm calling out as bullshit. And that is, look, all the eyes that are on this case, they know all the players. They know everybody who's on the board. They know who was in the house on that night, and they know what happened. Now, why would it be in the interests of these people? Let's say the survivors, let's take them and put them here. These two, who have had a huge amount of scrutiny over the fact that there was a huge delay in calling 911, to not have their say, and for that to be publicised to clear up any misconceptions of what happened that night. It seems to me that this whole situation, this entire situation, has been set up to protect either things that perhaps weren't done right, or to protect the reputations of perhaps those who lost their lives and those who ended up surviving the attack. I use the term loosely, survived. At the end of the day, they're material witnesses. They were there. They weren't attacked. They didn't have any injuries. They were left alone. The only thing that they are in terms of victims are that they just happened to be, as far as we know, in the house the night this happened. We don't know that. We don't know that for certain. We don't know. And we won't know anything. And I think that's the point. We won't know anything. Now, just to answer the question, will Brian Kohberger still get a trial? Yes, he will get a trial. He will 100% get a trial. The only difference is in the grand jury situation is that they determine whether it will go to trial based on the evidence that is given to them, rather than the preliminary hearing getting all the cards on the table. This is a selection of cards on the table that are then used to justify what happens next. I don't know what you guys think about the whole situation. I would be interested to hear your thoughts and feelings. Now, we do have the official arraignment documentation. We know that there's elements of this that has already started to be redacted, and what it means going forward. Do people now feel that more than ever that this does point towards that things are being hidden in respect of this case? I would have thought a case of this nature, with who was involved and what happened, that in the best interest of the public and everybody would be to make that as public as possible. For everybody to understand that this is what happened and this is what we're doing about it. If they have, again, I'll say this again, my Michael Jordan reference, if they have a slam dunk truly, then what is the harm of saying, look, this is a slam dunk and this is why? We found DNA that belonged to the victims all over that car. We found dog hairs or victims' blood, victims' DNA in Brian Kohberger's apartment. Why would they have not let that then go to preliminary hearing? Because how would he have explained that? And it would have gone to trial and people would have felt a lot more comfortable about it. This entire situation, by doing it this way, even further fuels the speculation of the public and places, in my opinion, the people like Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen at greater risk. It puts them at greater risk because the people who they are at risk from are people that feel that there has been injustice. But if the system can prove that there has been real and true justice, then what is there to fear? What is there to, they turn around and say, we don't want witnesses to be intimidated. Why would they feel that there is a potential for witnesses to be intimidated unless they feel that there's a potential for connections to something more nefarious, such as cartel activity? That's my take on it. And again, this is what I'm talking about with regards to where speculation can lead and what risk it can put people in this scenario. Because now we think to yourself, well, just say, for argument's sake, the cartel were involved. This was a drug situation. It was the cartel. But now we hear grand jury, and the purpose of the grand jury is to hide the people who could have potentially been a witness. Well, not being funny, but it's not going to take a fucking genius to work out whose details they're hiding with respect of what could have been said about what happened that night. And who would be targeted? Who would that put then in direct harm's way? So that is completely contradictory to the purpose of what they claim this is about. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe but that's my mind. That's the way my mind works. If I was a criminal and I had set this up and I was the mastermind, I would now be focusing my attention even more on the people that I felt would be a risk to me. Because I would be now of a mindset, so I'm now not going to know what you're saying. They're hiding the possibility that you are involved. I'm going to deal with it. And that's just me. I'll catch you all in the next one.